Hello everyone. Today I'm going to go over my favorite garden additions of 2024. Now these are not plants. I already did a video about the plants that I love, that I'm going to grow again, the plants I won't grow again, so I will link that down below. But this is going to be all of the non-plants that I added to the garden that have just made gardening either a lot easier or a lot prettier, in my opinion. So I'm just going to start going through this list. Again, I've been gardening here since 2020, 2019 total if you include our last place. And over the years of deck gardening, I've found the things that I really love that work really well specifically for me. So I'm hoping that if you're gardening in a similar situation, or even if you're not, some of these products might actually be helpful. So I'm going to start with my favorite of this year, which is a very exciting thing. A hose. So this is what's called a flexible hose. And the first 3 years of gardening, I was just using a traditional hose. Sometimes I laid it on the deck. Sometimes I had it like in one of the reels to keep that. And in my situation, a regular hose just doesn't work very well. So my garden itself isn't very large, which means I have a lot of obstacles to work around because I'm putting plants everywhere. So I've found when you are gardening in a situation that requires a lot of curving, flexible hoses work much better, because a traditional hose, like maybe if I was trying to get around, let's say my table or my chairs, it would maybe curve like that. But I mean, this, when there's water in it, it doesn't quite go all the way down, but it can curve a lot more around the corners than a regular traditional hose will. That's also why, even though I know Hose Link is so popular and people love it, that type of hose just isn't going to work really well for me. Also, because things are everywhere, I often knock my hose into plants, and that hasn't stopped since using the flexible hose. But this is so much, not softer, I don't think that's the right word, but it's less stiff than a regular hose. So even though I knock plants with this, I've never broken one, and I broke a lot of branches with my traditional hose. So this works so much better for me. Now, the issue with flexible hoses very often is the quality. So I knew last year that I wanted to try a flexible hose, but I didn't want to invest because this is not cheap. Actually, let me see how much it costs really quick. Okay, it's not as bad as I remember. It's $30. For some reason, I was thinking it's like 60 or 80. I don't know what I'm confusing it with, but this hose is $30. And even though it's not, again, as expensive as I thought, I wanted to make sure I liked the idea of a flexible hose before investing in it, especially one for the front and the back deck. So last year I got the cheapest one I could find just to try it out. And that's when I realized flexible hoses were the correct type of hose for me. But that one leaked within a month or two of having it. I mean, I still used it just to get the use out of it. But then I asked on Instagram what the best brand of flexible hoses were, and 0G was the one that like blew the rest of the competition away. So I got one, and the one I got isn't actually this one at first. So my deck, again, is about 20 by 20 square feet, a little bit under. And for some reason, I thought I would go for the 50-foot hose just in case I needed that extra length. I didn't. And it was so long that it was like running into things a lot more, taking up too much space. So I got the 25-foot, and that one has been the best for my situation. I don't know if they go shorter. I do know they have at least 100-foot if you need longer, but the 50-foot one I did save because that's going to go down on the new garage deck, because that needs to water not only the actual deck itself, but also the walkway. So I think that's going to work perfect for there. But I now have 25-foot of the 0G on this deck, 25-foot on the front deck, and then the 50-foot one for down there. And I'm absolutely in love. And I have had, again, I've only had this though for one season, but it's definitely lasted longer than my last hose. I've had no leaking, no signs of any wear and tear on this. And I sort of store it correctly. So you are supposed to run all the water out of the hose. You're not supposed to leave the hose with water in it. That's for any flexible hose. That I do. What I don't do is keep it out of the sun. I know a lot of people will put it in a pot or something like that. Because I'm a person that just wants to come out and grab my hose, I just leave it lying on the deck. Now, what I do like is that when this does not have water in it, you can really kind of put it into a nice tight ball and toss it in the corner, and that's just what I do. So it does sit in the sun. It has this whole time, and again, no issues with anything leaking. So I really, really like this hose. So for my next item, we're just gonna move a little bit further down to this watering wand. So I've used many a watering wand throughout my years of gardening. And what I find works the best for me, it's not a specific brand, but it's something that is a longer wand so that I don't have to bend over. So if I'm watering, I can just stand there and water the plants and I don't have to hunch over like I do with a shorter one. I actually still have a shorter one for downstairs and I've used that hose a little bit and I'm hunching over and I do not miss having to do that. So something that's a bit longer. And then also, again, me, personal preference, I like one that has the different spray options. Mostly I'm using shower when I water. I do use mist sometime for seedlings. I do use the jet relatively often for like spraying off aphids. I will use the center on some smaller pots. So I know, again, like the Dram wands, for example, are a really popular brand, but I don't think they make any that actually have the different sprays on them. I think you actually have to change the whole head. I'm a person who's about efficiency, so I like something like this that I can just turn and keep track of one handle that does multiple spray options. So I don't even know what this brand is, but the issues I've had in the past, so I think maybe it was either last year or the year before, I switched to a longer wand, which again was game changing, but it had to have been at least 2 years ago because I got whatever was available at Home Depot. I used it that whole season. It worked fine. I stored it inside the house. And then when I went to use it the next season, it was leaking from, there was like a little, it's not this one, but there was like a little label. It's black and yellow and it was leaking from there. So, well, one, I tried to super glue it and that didn't work very long. But then I got another one, the same one from Home Depot, thinking maybe it was just a fluke, and the same exact thing happened. So this year I switched to this one from Amazon. I don't know the brand. I don't think it says anywhere, but I'll link it down below. And with this one, I have not had any issues yet. But again, this is the first year I'm using it. So we'll see if over the winter, again, I will store this in the house, but there doesn't seem to be as many spots for this one to leak as there were for my Home Depot one. So I just want to keep that in mind in case that is something that you might have an issue with. Oh, also another thing I like about this, let me empty out the water before I spray myself with it, is that it does have, if you're watering a lot, this little latch on it as well that keeps the handle down. So you don't have to squeeze it the whole time you're watering. So just small things like that I found are really helpful when I'm watering my plants. So yeah, I'll link this down below. I don't know the brand on this one, but those are the qualities that I have found I really enjoy in a watering wand. While we are on the topic of watering, let's talk about irrigation. So even though I do use the hose, most of my garden is set up on irrigation, which just in general, I would highly recommend setting it up. Even if your garden is even smaller than mine, one, the time it saves you, it can water in the morning if maybe it's already getting warm by the time you're waking up, and you can leave for the weekend and not be completely stressed out. I mean, I'm still stressed out when I leave my garden anyway, but at least I know the watering is happening. So I've had irrigation set up since 2021, and over the years I've made some adjustments and again found what has worked the best for me. The first system I used was the Proven Winners drip kit. And what I don't like about that for my specific garden is that the emitters where the water comes out, it's a little drip. I don't have it anymore, but it's a little drip system and literally one drop of water comes out at a time, which is great if you're targeting one specific plant. But in a lot of my elevated beds, I might have 10 plants and I don't want to have 10 different drips set up. So I prefer emitters that are adjustable, where they have like a little spray instead of a drip. You can turn them up to make them larger. You can turn them down to make them smaller. I will link my video about my irrigation below so you can see specifically how they work. But that's what I slowly transitioned my garden to. I went from Proven Winners to the drip kits. And I have two different brands, Carpathian, which is my favorite brand, and then Abacucu, which I'm trying new this year. I just prefer the Carpathian emitters. I like that one better of everything I've tried. But you can also create your own if you get irrigation tools or supplies from Home Depot. But what I want to talk about specifically as a change I made this year is I increased my main tube line. So the main water line that comes out of the hose faucet, I switched that from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. That has made the water flow so much better. So if you are just starting off, I would make sure that your main tube is at least a 1/2 inch, because water can get a lot further than in my container garden than it could before when it was at a 1/4 inch. So that was really the only change I made this year, was swapping out the drip kit for a kit with the larger tube. Everything else I think back here has been set up for a couple years. I don't know if I'll be making any adjustments next year unless something has to be repaired, but I will be setting up new irrigation on the garage deck once that is all done next year. So now that we've gone over watering equipment, I'm gonna move on to containers. And there's really two specific types of containers that I added new to my garden that I really, really love. The first one is right behind me, my bucket planter. I have loved this so much. So I got this back in either February or March. It was from Amazon. They have white and black. The reviews, well, it seems like one of those products that a bunch of different companies sell, and whether all of those 20 companies are actually the same company with different names, I don't know. Reviews have been mixed on some of the vendors that sell it, but for me, it's been fine. So I drilled holes into the bottom of each of these buckets. I think it's 3 holes in each, just with a drill. I didn't need to use anything special because that way there's some drainage, and these were intended to hold water in bouquets. But for a planter, you need the drainage. So I went ahead and did that, and I love it. It just created this beautiful wall of color. I had flowers in here for spring. I have these flowers now for summer. I don't know if I'm gonna switch anything for fall because these are still okay for the most part. So I love it. And this is just my opinion. My opinion often changes. But right now, I don't love the look of the green stalks for my garden. I've never had a green stalk. I know they're great for vertical gardening. I know you can fit a lot in a small square footage, but that type of vertical planter, I just haven't really loved the look of. Plus, I feel like I know myself and I won't rotate it enough for all of the plants to get even amounts of sunlight. So this has worked really well because everything's growing just in one direction. And in terms of aesthetics, I like how this one looks. But again, if you see me with a green stalk in another year or two, know that my opinions in the garden often change. My next favorite container are the raised beds from Epic Gardening. So I have had 4 beds on my front deck, again, for the last couple years. I added 2 more. I cannot fit anymore, so 6 is what I'm gonna have to work with from now on, but I think that's plenty of space out there on the front deck. But I love the new raised beds, the new wooden raised beds specifically that they came out with. Now, I will say, they sent me 2 for free because I am working with them as part of their program, making content for them, so they did send me those for free. But even if they hadn't, the price is still comparable to my other raised beds, and I like these better because, well, 2 main reasons. One is much larger than the other, but the first reason is that you can change the depth. So both of mine are set at the deepest they can go. I think there are 3 different depths, and the depth just depends on where you put the bottom board. So you can make shallower containers if you're just doing annuals, deeper containers if you're doing perennials. So I really like that because that's the only time I've seen that. The other thing, which I didn't think would be a big deal and is that there's a ledge. There's a ledge on it. And all of my other raised beds just have a piece of square wood on the corner that I will rest my phone on, that I will rest my pruners on, that I will rest my baskets on, and then they fall off. And actually having a ledge all the way around really has made much more of a difference than I thought. So I really like those raised beds and the ability to kind of customize them a little bit. But yeah, I really like those. And again, they sent me those for free, but I would still pay for them compared to my other raised beds that I already have in my garden. So if I ever need to replace them, which I hope isn't very soon, my Gronomics beds, then I would do that with one of the Epic Gardening beds. Next thing, kind of container related. So I would say 2023 was the year of starting to put wheels and things under my containers, which I think is really important, especially when you're gardening on a deck, especially a wooden deck. I didn't think enough about deck protection early on. I mean, I don't think I've caused any major damage, which is great. There's some scratches and stuff from dragging things around, but now I really am focused on protecting my deck as much as possible, and that requires putting things underneath my pots. So I have a few different items. I have 2 that I'll show you here, but I'm looking around. I don't think I have a single container that's directly sitting on my deck, not counting my elevated beds, but all of my other pots, there's something between them and the deck to both protect my deck and help with drainage from the pots. The first thing are wheeled caddies. This is the one I have the most of. It fits my 12-inch pots, ones that are even a little bit larger than that. The only thing it doesn't fit are really large pots like this one right there, and then my 30-gallon grow bags. I do have a different wheeled caddy that's adjustable, and I'll link that down below too, but this is the one that I have almost every other pot that's on wheels on. And I've learned that having wheels makes it so much easier to move things around, especially the larger containers. This is also what's under my raspberry bushes. So instead of having to like stick my face in the raspberry bush container to pick it up, I can just kind of push it out of the way with the wheels. There are locks on these. I think these come in packs of 6. I have brown. I'm pretty sure I have black out front as well, but I switched to brown this year when I got some more. So they have a few different colors. You put them together and you can wheel things around your deck. Now, this one doesn't have a drainage hole in it, but honestly, it's so hot up here. We get so much sun that it's not like there's water sitting in this for very long. It evaporates relatively quickly. So that could be something you might want to think about. I know I don't have any of these, but I know they also have like stick-on wheels. So you can get wheels, assuming your pot's not super heavy, and just stick them onto your existing containers, which could be an option as well. I think I'm gonna look into that for some of my pots next year too. The other most common item underneath my pots are these. These are just called plant lifts. That's what I searched for on Amazon. I have so many of these. I don't know how many different packs I've ordered. So it doesn't lift the things too far off the deck, maybe just like an inch. And then this does have a grid system, so the water can drain through it, so your pot's not sitting in the water. And this is just for deck protection because there's no wheels, so it's not like I can move things around on it. But I really like them. And I mean, even some of my pots you can see them under, but I don't think it detracts from the look of my garden. So I really like these. I have these under all of my grow bags with the dahlias, under all of my pots that aren't sitting on wheels. So I really like these. And if you are gardening on a deck, make sure to protect it, especially so with the new garage deck, it is a manufactured stone tile. It's something that's supposed to be more durable, but I'm even more nervous because it's new. So I'm definitely putting lifts under my pots. I'm putting wheels. I'm putting any sort of protection between the containers, especially like metal containers, stone containers, anything that might scratch. I'm going to be extra careful with all of those. So definitely keep that in mind if you are gardening on some sort of deck, patio, balcony. Next up are my tablecloths, which I love so much and I forgot I had. So what happens in the winter is I'm dreaming of next year's garden. I'll buy things for it, even though I know I should wait. And I got 2 tablecloths. They're the exact same. I have a round one for the front deck. I have a rectangle one for the back deck. I got them again in February or March, put them in a closet, remembered that I had them in mid-August. So I wasted a lot of months without them. But I love them so much. I wasn't sure at first, honestly, because I don't know, for me, sometimes whether aesthetics matter too much in the garden, I don't know. For me, some things can throw it off, but I really love how they look. I feel like it makes my garden feel a little bit more put together, a little bit more romantic, and I really, really like it. Now, I've found, I love thrifting, I love antiquing. I have found some beautiful tablecloths like that, but I would not put anything that I'd be worried about damaging outside or getting stained. I mean, these tablecloths, they stay outside. They get potted on, they get rained on, so they're just from Amazon. They're nothing that's really expensive because I knew that I didn't want something I had to be precious with in the garden. But I love it so much. It just feels like it, I don't know, kind of ties my garden together nicely. Almost looks like I'm kind of a professional, even though I don't really feel like I am most of the time. But I just love the look that it adds to my garden. And I know there were some different prints of these. I chose blue just because my cushions here are blue. The chairs out front happen to be blue. That was not planned. That's just the way it ended up. So I think it really works very nicely. Next, not sure if we can get more exciting than a hose, but I have garbage bags. Now, I have never been a garbage bag expert. I didn't realize other than different sizes, there were different types of garbage bags. So I do have a garbage can up here for anything that's diseased or I can't compost that goes into the garbage and is taken downstairs. So I have to wrap everything up. I usually will chop up anything I'm taking down, especially stems, so that they don't tear a hole in the bag because the bag has to go through our house. So I don't want garden juices spilling out throughout the house, especially now that we have carpeting on the stairs. I feel like anytime I try to make like an adult decision, then I just get so worried about ruining the adult decision that I made. So now that we have carpet on the stairs, I'm even more careful because I can't just wipe up something that I spill. So because of that, when I was using the regular garbage bags, even if I cut something up really small, it still might tear. And then someone was like, do you know they make construction bags or yard waste bags? No, I didn't. And now I have them. So I switched to these. So much better. Not that they don't ever tear. They still can tear a little bit, but I can't even think of a time when that's happened in my garden, but it's not like they are completely indestructible. But these have just made gardening so much easier. And that was one of those things where it's like, why didn't I realize this when I first started gardening, so that I wasn't tearing holes in all of the garbage bags that I was carrying downstairs? So yeah, just know that they do make more heavy-duty garbage bags that might be useful for you in your garden, especially if you have to carry it through your house. And then the last thing, which I don't think I've ever shown here, I did show it on Instagram, and I don't use it super often, but I do use it frequently-ish, is a shop vac. So I have a broom and a dustpan on both decks because I do spill dirt. I try not to, but things do get spilled, leaves fall off of plants, I'll sweep them up. And sometimes, especially with smaller particles like potting soil, even if I'm sweeping, some still falls between the cracks of the deck. And so I try to be as clean as possible. I've always done that. But somebody told me that their building's roof had to be replaced because of all of the debris that had fallen between the decks. So that scared me, and I got a shop vac, which has made it a lot easier. I'm definitely going to be using it for the end of season cleanup as well. But for that dirt or debris, that smaller particles, it makes it so much easier just to use the shop vac and suck it up, and then that way it's not falling in between the cracks. I was even able to go around some of like the edges of the decking and get some of the leaves out that fall from the trees anyway, so I was able to get some out of there too. So that's been really helpful. I don't know if a vacuum is necessary in your gardening situation, but know that that is an option. That's something that you want to do. My neighbors have seen me vacuuming the deck. I don't know what they think, but probably not any weirder than the other things they've seen me do. So we're probably fine. But I think that's all of the new things. I'm just kind of looking around the deck here, but yeah, I think that's everything new that I've added to the garden this year. And again, things that just, whether it's like a minor improvement or a major improvement in the garden, they've just made container gardening in my situation a lot easier. So let me know if there's anything else that you use, if you're gardening in a similar situation that you really like. Maybe it's something I need to incorporate as well. Let me know if you have any questions. I will try to remember to link everything down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.